A career night for her, 35 points. Can you believe that? She also breaks the WNBA rookie record with over 750 career points.
You know, you go back and think about like what we could have got there, what we couldn't have got, and I thought it was a great shot, honestly. And me and Christy talked about it. That's something you live with if you make it.
Did you see what happened when Caitlin Clark faced her biggest rival? It was like watching a real-life superhero movie. Clark didn't just play basketball, she rewrote the whole script of the game. And her rival, let's just say she probably wishes she stayed home that day. The arena was electric. Clark and Reese stepped onto the court and you could feel the tension in the air. This wasn't just any game. It was a battle for Rookie of the Year. The crowd was buzzing, waiting to see who'd come out on top. But let me tell you, what happened next shocked everyone. Even the refs couldn't believe their eyes. Clark was about to face her biggest challenge yet. She had obstacles to overcome, but man, the glory waiting for her, it was gonna be epic. You know what's crazy? This game wasn't just about winning. It was about proving who's the best. And Clark, she was ready to show the world why she's the real deal. Get ready, because this story is about to get wild. Remember when I said this story was about to get wild?
Got a lot of confidence, and that's all she needed was just, you know, hit a couple shots, get some confidence, and she's just been so consistent for us.
Yeah, I think the three-point record is cool, and I think it just speaks to the way we play offense and the way we've been playing offense, especially as of late, like just fast, up-tempo.
Well, the first quarter was like throwing gasoline on a fire. Clark stepped onto the court ready to prove herself, but her rivals had other ideas. What happened next left everyone in the arena stunned. From the moment the game tipped off, it was clear that Clark's opponents had a plan, and it wasn't pretty. The physical play was intense, with Clark facing a defense that seemed more like a gauntlet than a basketball strategy. The refs' whistles were working overtime, but even they couldn't keep up with the aggressive fouls aimed at Clark. You want to talk about unfair treatment? Get this. Clark was the target of an insane 177% of flagrant fouls this season. That's not just tough defense, that's a straight up vendetta against one player. But here's the thing, Clark didn't let it faze her. While her opponents were busy trying to knock her off her game, Clark was out there making plays. In that first quarter alone, she put up 5 points, grabbed 2 rebounds, and dished out 3 assists. And let me tell you, those assists were something else. Clark's court vision was on full display as she found her teammates for easy baskets, threading passes through the aggressive defense like she had eyes in the back of her head. Now you might be thinking, okay, but what about her rival? Well, while Clark was out there cooking, Angel Reese was struggling to even get the oven turned on. Reese managed just 2 points in the first quarter, looking completely out of sync. It was like watching 2 different games. Clark rising to the challenge, Reese sinking under the pressure. But don't think for a second that Clark's performance came easy. Every possession was a battle. She was getting bumped, pushed, and knocked around like a pinball. Lesser players would have crumbled under that kind of pressure. Not Clark. She kept her cool, kept her focus, and kept making plays. You know what's really impressive? It wasn't just about the stats. It was the way Clark carried herself on the court. Every time she got knocked down, she got right back up. Every time the defense swarmed her, she found a way to make something happen. It was like watching a master class in mental toughness. And the crowd, they were loving it. With every play Clark made, the energy in the arena cranked up another notch. You could feel the momentum building, like a wave about to crash. Clark wasn't just playing basketball, she was putting on a show, and everyone knew they were witnessing something special. By the end of that first quarter, it was clear that this wasn't just another game. This was Clark making a statement. She was facing the toughest defense of her career, dealing with more physical play than she'd ever seen, and she was still out there balling. It wasn't just about the points or the assists. It was about her resilience, her determination, her refusal to back down. If you thought Clark was impressive in the first quarter, the second quarter was when she turned into a human highlight reel. Remember that rivalry we talked about? Well, it was about to become a one-woman show. What happened next left even the most seasoned basketball analysts speechless. Clark exploded onto the court like she had rockets in her sneakers. She wasn't just playing basketball, she was rewriting the rule book. In that second quarter alone, she put up 15 points. That's not a typo, 15 points in a single quarter. But here's the kicker, she didn't stop there. Clark dished out 7 assists and snagged 3 rebounds by halftime. It was like watching a one-woman army take on the entire opposing team. And her shooting, oh man, it was something else. Clark was draining threes like they were layups. She hit 3 out of 5 attempts from beyond the arc. Every time she let one fly, you could feel the tension in the arena. Would it go in? Of course it would. The crowd was going wild with every swish. But Clark wasn't just about scoring. Her playmaking ability was on full display. At one point, she threw a touchdown pass to Erica Wheeler that had everyone's jaws on the floor. It was like she had eyes in the back of her head. Then, just when you thought she couldn't get any better, she fed Darius Dantos for a sweet foul line jumper. Her court vision was out of this world. Now, let's talk about Angel Reese for a second. While Clark was putting on a clinic, Reese was, well, let's just say she was having a rough night. In that same second quarter, Reese managed just 4 points and 6 rebounds. But here's the real kicker, she committed 4 turnovers. It was like watching 2 different games happening at the same time. You know what's crazy? This wasn't just any game. This was a battle for Rookie of the Year, and with every bucket Clark scored, every assist she dished out, you could see the gap between her and Reese widening. It wasn't just about the numbers anymore. It was about who could perform under pressure, who could lead their team when it mattered most.
You go without noticing Caitlin Clark. Right. She's phenomenal, and again, she's a little bit of like both of you. Like Diana's a bucket at all times, and she's a bucket like...
An atmosphere at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, the Indiana Fever wrapping up the regular season at home with a 110-106 victory, and there's Caitlin Clark behind me.
On the court, I'm very competitive. I'm super competitive when it comes between the lines. I work really hard, but when off the court, we can have a good time.
And boy, did Clark deliver under pressure. There was this moment when she hit back-to-back three-pointers. The crowd went absolutely insane. You could feel the energy in the arena shift. It was like Clark had flipped a switch, and suddenly her team was unstoppable. But here's the thing about Clark, it wasn't just her individual performance that was impressive, it was how she elevated her entire team. Every time she touched the ball, good things happened. Her teammates were feeding off her energy, playing with a confidence that wasn't there before. Meanwhile, Reese was feeling the heat. You could see the frustration on her face. Every turnover, every missed shot, it was all adding up, and with Clark playing out of her mind, the pressure on Reese just kept mounting. By halftime, Clark had led her team to a 5-point lead, but it felt like so much more than that. The momentum had completely shifted. Clark had taken control of the game, and it didn't look like she was planning on letting go anytime soon. You know how they say lightning doesn't strike twice? Well, Caitlin Clark didn't get that memo. Just when it seemed Clark had shown us everything in her arsenal, she cranked it up another notch. What came next wasn't just basketball. It was a masterclass in how to break your rival's spirit. The third quarter kicked off, and Clark wasted no time reminding everyone why she's the talk of the league. She dropped 8 points and dished out 2 assists. But those numbers don't even begin to tell the whole story. It was like watching a chess grandmaster while everyone else was playing checkers. There was this moment when Clark pulled off a step-back 3 that had the crowd losing their minds. She created space, like she had a force field around her, and when that ball left her hands, you just knew it was going in. Swish, nothing but net. The defense could only watch in disbelief. But Clark wasn't done. On the very next possession, she drew a foul that sent her to the line. Now, most players might get rattled after all that physical play, but not Clark. She stepped up to the line cool as a cucumber and knocked down both free throws. It was like she was in her own little world, completely unfazed by the pressure. Meanwhile, Angel Reese was having a nightmare of a third quarter. She managed to scrape together just 1 point, one single point. And if that wasn't bad enough, her plus-minus rating for the quarter was a brutal 4. You could see the frustration written all over her face. It was like watching a star player's confidence crumble in real time. The energy in the arena was electric. With every play Clark made, you could feel the momentum shifting. The Fever's lead ballooned to 14 points by the end of the third quarter, and the crowd was going absolutely bonkers. It was like they knew they were witnessing something special, a performance that would be talked about for years to come. But here's what really sets Clark apart. Her leadership. She wasn't just scoring, she was elevating her entire team. There was this play where she threaded the needle with a pass so perfect, it left her teammate with a wide open layup.
We were switching well, contesting shots and, rebounding and getting stops at the end were the reasons we won. I wrote down on a piece of paper when I was in second grade, get a basketball scholarship, playing the WNBA, this is always something I wanted to do.
The crowd went wild, but Clark was already racing back on defense. That's the kind of player she is, always thinking 2 steps ahead. You want to talk about poise under pressure? Clark was out there looking like a 10-year veteran, not a rookie in the biggest game of her career so far. Every time the opposing team tried to make a run, Clark had an answer. A clutch 3 here. A slick assist there. It was like watching a conductor lead an orchestra, with the ball as her baton and the court as her stage. As the third quarter wound down, you could see the deflation in Reese's body language. It wasn't just that she was having a bad game, it was that Clark was having such an incredible one. The contrast was stark, and it was clear which player was rising to the occasion and which one was sinking under the weight of expectations. But let's be real for a second. This wasn't just about Clark versus Reese anymore. This was about Clark cementing her place as a true force in the WNBA. Every possession, every play, she was out there proving why she deserves to be mentioned among the game's elite. Rookie or not, Clark was playing like a bona fide superstar. Just when you thought Clark couldn't possibly top her in-game performance, she did something off the court that had fans and critics alike rethinking everything. What could possibly overshadow a 31-point game? Stick around, because this is where the real story begins. The final buzzer sounded and the arena erupted. Clark had just put on a show for the ages, but the numbers that flashed up on the scoreboard, they were even more mind-blowing than anyone expected. Clark finished the game with a jaw-dropping 31 points, 12 assists, and 4 rebounds. But here's the kicker. She shot 57% from the field and 55.6% from three-point range. That's not just good, that's video game numbers. Now let's talk about Angel Reese for a second. She managed to pull off a double-double with 10 points and 11 rebounds. On any other night, that might have been the headline. But against Clark's stellar performance, it barely registered as a footnote. You know what's really crazy? This wasn't just about one game. This matchup was a critical factor in the Rookie of the Year conversation. And let me tell you, Clark just made that conversation a whole lot more interesting. She didn't just outplay her rival, she redefined what it means to be a rookie in the WNBA.
You can tell she's put the work in. And even, throughout, her short WNBA career, nothing short of remarkable. And, the one thing that I really love about her, she loves the game. She keeps showing up and keeps getting better every single game. So her future is super bright.
But here's where things get even more interesting. After the game, when most players would be celebrating or heading to the locker room, Clark did something unexpected. She walked straight over to Reese, looked her in the eye, and shook her hand. It wasn't just a quick handshake either. They talked for a good minute, and you could see the respect between them. That moment, it spoke volumes about Clark's character. She wasn't just out there to win a game or make herself look good. She was there to elevate the sport. And in that moment, she showed everyone watching that you can be a fierce competitor on the court and still show sportsmanship off it. The implications of this game are huge. Clark didn't just win a game, she made a statement. She showed that she's not just here to compete, she's here to dominate. And the Rookie of the Year race? Well, let's just say it might not be much of a race anymore, but it's not just about individual awards. What Clark did in this game is going to have ripple effects throughout the entire WNBA.
5, 4, yeah, we sitting on that. We sitting through. Good job, good D. And understanding, negative things have probably been said about me, but honestly, I'll take that because look where women's basketball is.
She's raising the bar for what rookies can do, sure. But more than that, she's changing expectations for what women's basketball can be. The level of skill, the intensity of play, the sheer excitement. Clark brought all of that and more. You want to talk about rising star status? Clark just went supernova. This performance is going to be talked about for years to come. It's the kind of game that gets replayed on sports channels that kids watch and say, I want to play like that. But here's what really sets Clark apart. It's not just her skill, it's her resilience. Remember how she was getting knocked around in the first quarter? Lesser players would have crumbled under that pressure. Not Clark. She took every hit, every hard foul, and turned it into fuel for her fire. That's the kind of mental toughness you can't teach. And let's not forget about her teammates. Clark's performance didn't just make her look good, it elevated everyone around her. Her assists weren't just passes, they were opportunities. She created space, drew defenders, and gave her teammates chances to shine. That's what true leadership looks like on the court. Wow, what a game. Caitlin Clark didn't just play basketball, she rewrote the whole rule book. Remember how she started off getting knocked around, but then she just exploded, scoring 31 points and dishing out 12 assists. That's insane. You know what's even crazier? This game wasn't just about Clark versus Reese. It was about changing the whole game of women's basketball. The 2023 NCAA championship game averaged 9.9 million viewers. That's huge. And Clark's performance, it's gonna make those numbers go even higher. Clark didn't just win a game today. She won hearts, respect, and maybe even changed the future of women's basketball. She showed that women's sports are just as exciting and competitive as men's. That's what being a true champion is all about.